Teamwork makes the dream work. Today's episode is all about collaborating with related service providers. Hey, special educators. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. Hey, special educators, it's Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to share some simple yet helpful tips to build stronger partnerships with our related service providers. In my experience, this was usually speech-language pathologists, OT, school psychologists, and social workers. I'm going to share a few strategies that have personally worked well for me over the years, so let's jump in. This first tip is all about communication, because we know that's the foundation for building a successful partnership. And before I share this tip, I just want to say, stay with me. Ready? Tip number 1, set a regular check-in time. Now, you may automatically be saying, nope, who has time for that? They don't have time, I don't have time. But please hear me out. Try to establish a short, regular check-in time with the related service providers who work with students on your caseload. It could be just 10 minutes a week, maybe not even 10 minutes. It could be passing in the hallway or sending an email, possibly setting up a calendar appointment on your end to send an email. Use a template once a week. This can really help keep everyone on the same page. You can stay updated on student progress, you can share concerns, and you could troubleshoot any issues before they become bigger problems. This small habit can make a huge difference in avoiding miscommunication and keeping everyone informed. This next tip goes without saying. Tip number 2, respect each other's expertise. So each related service provider is bringing their own set of specialized skills to the table, just like you are. And of course, we're going to respect each other, but we also can learn from each other's expertise. Whether you're learning more about speech language development, motor skills, social emotional support. If we can approach this partnership with that collaboration, that's just building that stronger support system for students. So use them. Don't hesitate to ask questions and learn from them. Back in episode 72, I shared ideas on how I supported students find motor skills, especially when they just missed qualifying for OT. I asked those questions. I learned so much, and our occupational therapist was happy to support me because she knew that was going to benefit all of the students, whether they were both on our shared caseload or not. A quick side note, my first year of teaching was so difficult. I was really nervous. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing, and my caseload was super intense. The school psychologist was actively involved. I kept thinking, she's going to figure me out. She's probably going to report me for having this massive anxiety. She ended up being a huge support. I learned so much from her, and we made tremendous progress with students. So if you're feeling that imposter syndrome start to trickle in, please don't let that stop you from reaching out and learning from each other. You deserve that support, and students will benefit so much. Tip number 3, I let related service providers make their schedules first whenever possible. Scheduling is always going to be a puzzle. There are so many moving parts. In episode 92, I share my scheduling tips. One thing that has worked really well for me is letting everybody else set their schedule before I sat down to figure out mine. It's a small gesture that you can provide, but it can reduce a lot of stress. And hopefully you can avoid the back and forth negotiations. We all know that the service minutes are mandatory, but we also want them to be quality service minutes. If the SLP wants to pick up your student every Tuesday at 8 a.m., but you know that your student's going to be strolling in at 8:17, 8 a.m. is not going to work, and no one's going to be getting what they need. Before moving on to tip number 4, let's quickly review. Tip number 1 was all about communication. if that's something that's not already happening on a regular basis, you may want to set up a system, whether it's dropping by once a week or sending an email. Tip number 2, not only respecting each other's expertise, but also learning from each other. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. And tip number 3 was all about scheduling, seeing how flexible we can be so that everybody can be getting what they need. Tip number 4 is more logistical. As the caseload manager, you are responsible for sending out the reports and letting everybody know what they need to do before the IEP meeting. This can be a simple email template that you are sending out. And please don't forget any of the related service providers. They work with a lot of different caseload managers. You don't want to be the one that's always sending something late or forgetting to copy them. It's such a simple step, but it's a really important one. No one wants to be chasing down last-minute reports. Okay, this next tip, I never hear anybody talking about, and we definitely didn't learn this in school. Tip number 5, supporting student behavior during their sessions with related service providers. Hopefully this isn't happening with your students, but it was with mine, and I found that my students' behavior was sometimes interfering with their progress. I actually found out about this with one of my students by accident. I was having some conversation in an office nearby while my student was having a related service provider session, and I could tell it wasn't going well. I peeked in. My student was under the table laughing at the related service provider, basically mocking her. And who knows how long it had been going on to get to this point. I don't know why the provider didn't feel like she could share this. I think she was embarrassed, but I was so upset that the student wasn't getting services. This was also a problem I felt could be easily solved. We all sat down and had a conversation. So student knew that I knew what was going on. And we truly did not have much of a problem. I did a couple of flybys where I would just drop by unexpected, check in, see how everything was going, and it was fine. It was pretty much resolved. And I was happy to take this on, not just with this student, but being proactive with other students because sometimes they surprise us. We're up to the last tips. I'm going to share 2 together. I've experienced great success with inviting related service providers into the classroom. It's a great way to collaborate, whether they're coming in for a visit or an observation, or if they're coming in to co-teach. One year, this looked like pulling small groups for lunch buddies with the SLP. We worked on social emotional skills and pragmatic language goals. Another year, it looked like the SLP and OT coming into the resource room. I was doing a rotation, pulling a small group, and I had independent work systems in place. The SLP and OT also ended up pulling small groups during that same time, and it was pretty magical. This tip combines with another one that also led to great success for everybody, and that's communicating the big picture. Related service providers were only seeing students in isolated sessions, which was important also to work on goals and objectives. But it was really helpful to see that big picture of students in the classroom, sharing what's going on. An added benefit was the consistency it created for students, plus it shows students that we're a united team. At the end of the day, working closely with the related service providers is all about teamwork and communication. With these simple steps, you can build strong relationships that will benefit everyone. I hope today's episode gave you some helpful strategies to try out. And if you have any tips of your own on working with related service providers, I'd love to hear them. Please feel free to reach out on Instagram or TikTok. You can find me at Positively Learning. Thanks so much for listening. Keep up the amazing work you're doing, and I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.